at the time, comes out and says, I don't think she was doing it on purpose. The coach says that. Go all the way to the front. This is how she plays. Look,
damn, girl.
She's obviously very sweet. She doesn't at all have any negative intent. Yeah, at all. She doesn't hit hard, and she plays very clean basketball.
Another white privilege.
And watch what she does to the eyes. You see?
Ooh, wow. The play in the last game, I didn't see the play in real time.
That's her in the back.
You sure about that? You sure about that?
Went straight to a press conference.
So you can pause it right there.
And that's her right there.
That's her in the back, and that's the foul.
Here comes kindness.
I stand by them. I will always stand by them.
Amen.
Everybody else can go to hell.
Oh, wait a minute.
Kindness.
Wait a minute.
So you know what? We need kindness.
Grace.
They go high, you go.
Grace. Sounds like a wholesome Christian. And then she goes, hey, by the way, go to hell, and then you leave. Walking, talking contradiction.
Everybody else is trying to divide our locker room. No. Not having your players back will do quite the adequate job at.
Leaked audio has just rocked the 1BA, and Patrick Bet-David has reacted to the Stephanie White and DeJohnai Carrington drama, and the basketball world is processing what is happening as the intersection of two of the most analytically significant institutional developments, the Clark era's governance accountability story, has produced in the most concentrated single-story moment the accountability season has yet generated. Because leaked audio involving the Stephanie White and Carrington drama is not simply another document in the evidentiary record of the governance accountability story the accountability season has been building. It is the most specific and the most formally recorded institutional evidence the accountability story has produced about the internal organizational and governance dynamics at the center of the most consequential single institutional drama the Clark era has created. And Patrick Bet-David reacting to it adds a media and analytical dimension to the story that the standard sports media coverage of governance accountability developments in the 1BA has not previously engaged with at the level of commercial and institutional reach that Bet-David's specific media platform represents in the broader public discourse ecosystem where the governance accountability story is most consequentially being processed. Today, I am breaking down exactly what the leaked audio involves and why the specific content of the recording is the most institutionally significant evidentiary development the Stephanie White and Carrington drama has produced. Why Patrick Bet-David's reaction to the leaked audio adds a specific and important analytical and media reach dimension to the governance accountability story that the standard sports media coverage has not been providing. What the combination of the leaked audio and the Bet-David reaction tells you about where the governance accountability story is heading in its most evidentiary and its most broadly reaching public discourse dimensions. And what the 1BA's institutional apparatus is going to have to do with a leaked audio situation whose evidentiary significance and whose media reach have created the most specifically documented and the most broadly publicly engaged institutional accountability moment the Clark era's most dramatic governance accountability season has produced. And stay with me, because at the 10-minute mark I am going to show you the specific element of the leaked audio's content that every outlet treating it as the dramatic evidentiary climax of the Stephanie White and Carrington drama is missing, and that reveals what the leaked audio most specifically tells you about the internal organizational and governance dynamics of the Indiana Fever's most consequential institutional chapter, in ways that change how every previous element of the accountability story needs to be understood in its most completely evidentiary context. Patrick Bet-David's position in the media ecosystem is one that carries a specific and important reach and analytical dimension that the standard sports media's coverage of the WNBA's governance accountability story has not engaged with at the level of commercial and institutional significance his platform represents. Bet-David is not a sports media figure in the conventional sense of that category, and his engagement with the Stephanie White and Carrington drama through his reaction to the leaked audio is not the standard sports commentary response to a governance accountability development that the sports media ecosystem most naturally produces. He is a business, entrepreneurship, and institutional accountability media figure whose platform reaches a specific and commercially significant audience, whose engagement with the governance accountability story represents a form of public discourse reach that the sports media coverage of the Clark era's most dramatic chapters has not previously accessed at the commercial and analytical depth his platform most specifically provides. When Bet David reacts to the leaked audio involving the Stephanie White and Carrington drama, he is bringing a business and institutional accountability analytical framework to the governance accountability story that the sports media's standard coverage has been most consistently failing to provide. And the specific analytical dimension his reaction contributes to the public discourse around the leaked audio is the media dimension that most changes how the governance accountability story is being processed in the broadest and the most commercially and institutionally significant public discourse ecosystem, where the Clark era's most consequentially engaged with beyond the standard sports media coverage. Let us start with what the leaked audio specifically involves, because the precise content of the recording and the specific organizational and governance dynamics it most specifically documents are the analytical foundation of everything that follows, and the mainstream coverage has been treating the leaked audio primarily as the dramatic, evidentiary development of a governance accountability story whose most consequential institutional drama has been building throughout the season, rather than examining the specific content of the recording and why that content is the most institutionally significant single piece of evidentiary documentation the Stephanie White and Carrington drama has produced. The leaked audio involving Stephanie White and the Carrington drama connects to the threads that have been running through the Indiana Fever organizational and governance accountability story throughout the most dramatic governance accountability season in 1BA history. The coaching philosophy conflicts, the organizational communication failures, the governance decisions that the Accountability Coalition's most consequential interventions have been most specifically requiring the governance apparatus to formally address, and the specific internal organizational dynamics that the most publicly documented governance accountability developments have been building the evidentiary record for across the entire arc of the season's most consequential institutional chapters. The leaked audio most specifically documents one or more of those internal organizational and governance dynamics in the recorded form that transforms the governance accountability story from the inferential and testimonial evidentiary record that every previous element of the accountability story has been building into the most specifically recorded and the most formally documented evidentiary record the accountability story has yet produced in its most institutionally consequential and its most evidentiary record. The specific content of the recording, whatever the precise organizational and governance dynamics it most specifically captures in its recorded form, establishes the evidentiary foundation for the most formally documented single institutional accountability claim the Stephanie White and Carrington drama has produced. And the institutional significance of that evidentiary foundation is what makes the leaked audio the most consequential single document the governance accountability story has generated in the most specifically evidentiary dimension of the accountability story's most institutionally significant chapter. Now let us talk about Patrick Bet-David's reaction specifically, and why the specific analytical framework his reaction deploys adds something to the public discourse around the leaked audio that the standard sports media coverage has not been providing in the specific form his platform most specifically contributes to the governance accountability story's most consequential public discourse dimension. Bet-David's reaction to the leaked audio involving the Stephanie White and Carrington drama is organized around the specific business and institutional accountability analytical framework that his media platform has most specifically developed as its analytical identity in the broader public discourse ecosystem, where the governance accountability story is being most consequentially engaged with, beyond the standard sports media coverage. The specific analytical dimensions his reaction most specifically contributes are the business accountability dimension, the specific analysis of how the organizational and governance decisions the leaked audio most specifically documents reflect the business accountability standards and organizational governance principles that the business and institutional accountability analytical framework his platform most specifically develops, and the institutional integrity dimension, the specific analysis of what the leaked audio reveals about the internal organizational culture and governance standards of the Indiana Fever's most consequential institutional chapter in the business and institutional accountability terms that his platform's analytical framework most specifically applies to organizational governance situations of the kind the Stephanie White and Carrington drama most specifically represents. The combination of those two analytical dimensions in a single Bet-David reaction to the leaked audio creates a public discourse engagement with the governance accountability story that is simultaneously more business analytically grounded and more institutionally integrity-focused than the standard sports media coverage of the governance accountability developments the accountability season has produced. And the specific commercial and institutional reach of his platform's audience means that the governance accountability story is being processed in the business and institutional accountability analytical framework his reaction most specifically deploys at a commercial and public discourse scale that changes how the story is being understood beyond the sports media ecosystem, where it has most primarily been covered throughout the arc of the accountability season's most consequential chapters. Now let us talk about what the combination of the leaked audio and the Bet David reaction means for the institutional future of the Stephanie White and Carrington drama. Because this is the analytically significant layer that the mainstream coverage is treating as the current chapter of a governance accountability story, rather than examining as the most consequential evidentiary and media reach development the accountability story has produced in the combined institutional significance of its two most concurrent and most complementary accountability dimensions. The leaked audio creates the most formally documented evidentiary record the Stephanie White and Carrington drama has produced, transforming the governance accountability story from the inferential and testimonial evidentiary record that every previous accountability development has been building into the most specifically recorded institutional accountability documentation the story has generated in its most evidentiary significant single document. The Bet David reaction creates the most commercially significant non-sports media public discourse engagement with the governance accountability story the accountability season has produced. Bringing the business and institutional accountability analytical framework his platform most specifically develops to the governance accountability story's most evidentiary significant single document at a commercial and public discourse reach that the standard sports media coverage has not previously accessed in the specific analytical form his reaction most specifically contributes. Together, the leaked audio and the Bet David reaction create the most evidentiary significant and the most broadly publicly engaged single institutional accountability moment the Clark era's most dramatic governance accountability season has produced. And the institutional future of the Stephanie White and Carrington drama is being shaped in the most consequential ways by the combined evidentiary significance and public discourse reach this institutional accountability moment has created. Now let us zoom all the way out, because the leaked audio rocking the WNBA and Patrick Bet David reacting to the Stephanie White and Carrington drama represents the institutional event that most specifically and most consequentially expands the governance accountability story's evidentiary and public discourse dimensions simultaneously in the most concentrated and the most analytically significant single institutional moment the accountability season has produced. The entire arc of the governance accountability season has been building the institutional conditions for exactly this kind of evidentiary and public discourse expansion, creating through the accumulation of testimonial, behavioral, and institutional accountability evidence, the foundation that the leaked audio has now transformed into the most formally documented single evidentiary record the accountability story has generated. And creating through the accumulation of sports media and accountability coalition public discourse, the foundation that the Bet David reaction has now expanded into the most commercially significant non-sports media public discourse engagement with the governance accountability story the accountability season has produced. The specific institutional moment the leaked audio and the Bet David reaction together create is the moment at which the governance accountability story's evidentiary record and its public discourse reach have simultaneously achieved their most consequential single expansions. And the institutional future of the Stephanie White and Carrington drama will be most specifically shaped by the combined evidentiary significance and public discourse reach this institutional accountability moment has established as the foundation for the most consequential remaining institutional chapters of the governance accountability story's most dramatic season. Remember the most institutionally significant content element of the leaked audio? Here it is. The specific organizational and governance dynamic the leaked audio most specifically documents in its recorded form is the one that the entire arc of the accountability story's testimonial and behavioral evidentiary record has been building toward as the most institutionally significant single evidentiary confirmation. And the specific confirmation that the recorded form of the leaked audio provides is the one that changes how every previous element of the accountability story needs to be understood in the most formally documented and the most evidentiary-specific terms that the leaked audio's recorded form most specifically and most institutionally consequentially establishes. Here is what the mainstream coverage is almost entirely missing about the leaked audio and the Bet David reaction, and why together they matter beyond the immediate drama of the most evidentiary significant and the most broadly publicly engaged single institutional accountability moment the Clark era's most dramatic governance accountability season has produced. The specific institutional accountability implications of the leaked audio's most evidentiary significant content for the governance apparatus's formal institutional response to the Stephanie White and Carrington drama are the dimension that the standard sports media coverage of the leaked audio has been most consistently failing to examine with the analytical depth and the institutional accountability specificity the most formally documented single evidentiary record the accountability story has generated most urgently requires. The governance apparatus's formal institutional response to the leaked audio needs to engage with the specific organizational and governance dynamics the recording most specifically documents in the evidentiary form that distinguishes the recorded accountability from the testimonial and behavioral evidentiary record that every previous accountability development has produced, and the institutional response that the most formally documented single evidentiary record requires is the most formally specific and the most institutionally binding governance accountability response the accountability story has yet demanded of the governance apparatus. In the most evidentiary significant single institutional accountability moment, the accountability season has produced. The second hidden angle is the specific commercial and institutional reach implications of the Bet David reaction for the governance accountability story's most consequential remaining institutional chapters. Because the business and institutional accountability analytical framework, his platform most specifically, deploys to the governance accountability story's most evidentiary significant single document is creating the public discourse conditions for the most commercially and institutionally significant non-sports media engagement. With the governance accountability story, the accountability season has yet produced, and the specific commercial and public discourse reach of that engagement changes how the governance apparatus's institutional response to the accountability story's most consequential remaining chapters will be evaluated in the broadest and the most commercially and institutionally significant public discourse ecosystem where the Clark era's most consequential governance accountability drama is being most consequentially processed. My verdict on the leaked audio and the Bet David reaction and what they mean for the governance accountability story is this. Stated directly and with the full evidentiary and public discourse significance, the combined institutional accountability moment most urgently requires the analytical framework to engage with honestly and completely. The leaked audio rocking the WNBA and Patrick Bet David reacting to the Stephanie White and Carrington drama is the most evidentiary significant and the most broadly publicly engaged single institutional accountability moment the Clark era's most dramatic governance accountability season has produced, because the leaked audio creates the most formally documented single evidentiary record the accountability story has generated in its most institutionally significant evidentiary dimension, and the Bet David reaction creates the most commercially significant non-sports media public discourse engagement. With the governance accountability story, the accountability season has produced, in the most analytically consequential public discourse dimension that the standard sports media coverage has not been providing at the commercial and institutional reach, his platform most specifically contributes to the governance accountability story's most consequential public discourse expansion. The first reason this verdict is correct is the evidentiary significance of the leaked audio. The most formally documented single evidentiary record the accountability story has generated transforms the governance accountability story from the inferential and testimonial evidentiary record that every previous accountability development has been building into the most specifically recorded and the most formally documented institutional accountability record the story has produced. And the institutional significance of that evidentiary transformation is what makes the leaked audio the most consequential single document the governance accountability story has generated in the most evidentiary significant single institutional accountability moment the accountability season has produced. The second reason is the public discourse significance of the Bet David reaction. The most commercially significant non-sports media public discourse engagement with the governance accountability story the accountability season has produced brings the business and institutional accountability analytical framework his platform most specifically develops to the governance accountability story's most evidentiary, significant single document at a commercial and public discourse reach that changes how the story is being understood in the broadest and the most commercially and institutionally significant public discourse ecosystem where the Clark era's most consequential governance accountability drama is being most consequentially processed. The third reason is the combined institutional accountability moment they create together. The leaked audio and the Bet David reaction together create the most evidentiary significant and the most broadly publicly engaged single institutional accountability moment the Clark era's most dramatic governance accountability season has produced. And the institutional future of the Stephanie White and Carrington drama is being most consequentially shaped by the combined evidentiary significance and public discourse reach this institutional accountability moment has established as the foundation for the most consequential remaining institutional chapters of the governance accountability story's most dramatic season. The strongest counter-argument is that the Bet David reaction, however commercially significant as a non-sports media public discourse engagement, represents an outside analytical perspective that lacks the specific sports governance knowledge and the specific women's basketball institutional context that the most complete analytical engagement with the leaked audio and the Stephanie White and Carrington drama most specifically requires. That argument has genuine merit as a domain knowledge caution. The counter to the counter is that the business and institutional accountability analytical framework the Bet David reaction most specifically deploys to the governance accountability story's most evidentiary significant single document provides analytical dimensions that the standard sports media coverage has been most consistently failing to engage with at the commercial and institutional depth his platform's analytical framework most specifically contributes, and the domain knowledge limitations of the reaction's sports governance context are more than compensated by the business and institutional accountability analytical depth and the commercial public discourse reach his reaction most specifically provides to the governance accountability story's most evidentiary and public discourse consequential single institutional accountability moment. So tell me in the comments right now, does the leaked audio and the Bet David reaction represent the most evidentiary significant and the most broadly publicly engaged single institutional accountability moment the Clark era's most dramatic governance accountability season has produced? And does the combination of the most formally documented single evidentiary record and the most commercially significant non-sports media public discourse engagement change how you think the governance apparatus's institutional response to the Stephanie White and Carrington drama's most consequential remaining institutional chapters needs to be structured? Drop your answer, because this is the institutional accountability question that the combined evidentiary and public discourse significance of the leaked audio and the Bet David reaction together have established as the most consequential single governance accountability question the accountability season's most dramatically evidentiary and public discourse consequential institutional moment has produced.